Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the All You Can Board podcast. I'm Carlo.
I'm Dylan.
And on today's episode, our main course will be 2 players, not enough time. So this is sort of a companion episode to our best 2-player games video from earlier this week. We're going to have a lot to talk about there. So before we get to it, why don't we jump right into our appetizer this week? What do you have for us here, Dylan?
Okay, so the appetizer I just got to say that I have played Expeditions, which is a sequel to Scythe. And I've played this as someone who's never played Scythe, which is an interesting perspective. And so what I'm going to be most curious about after I tell you my feedback is just, I want you to just tell me does it sound like it's at all like similar to Scythe or whatever. I'm just very curious because I don't really have much frame of reference. So Expeditions, I played it solo, so that's what I'm going to be focusing on here. And it is this interesting sort of tableau builder that I'm going to just, instead of giving like an overview of all the rules here, I'm just going to like sort of highlight the things that I was interested in and I thought were interesting and then kind of discuss around those. So it has this system where your hand, quote unquote, is to the left of your player board, and then your actual like tableau played cards are to the right of your player board. And whether you play or discard a card, they always go to the right of the player board. And the reason that happens is because if something gets discarded, it doesn't trigger the abilities on the card, and if it gets played, it does. And what you're eventually doing is refreshing and having to bring everything from the right back to the left so that you can play it again and trigger abilities. So the reason they go to the same spot is because once it's there, there's minimal ways you can interact with it. So I thought that was kind of an interesting way of doing that. When I first read it in the rule book, I was like, oh, why are discards going to the same place as played cards? And then it makes more sense as you go. But aside from collecting cards, and there's a huge deck of cards, and I think they're all unique, you're also traversing these hexes that are on the board. And each hex has its own ability that you can trigger on it. But on your turn, there's 3 actions, and you can only ever take 2 of them. And so it's play, move, and gather. And so you can either play a card from your hand, you can either gather what's actually on the tile that your mech is on, or you can move to a different, and you can move 1 to 3 spaces. And so you can only ever take 2. The only way you can never do 3 in a turn is if you have refreshed. On your subsequent turn after a refresh, you get to do all 3. And so you timing those to be able to get a bigger turn is key to some of the tactics as well. So I will say that like I'm going to play this again solo, but I found like it did make me want, it's interesting because it made me want to play this with other people, because what happens when you play it solo is the AI, the Automa, there's 2 mechs, and they essentially move left to right across the top portions of the board that need to be unlocked by movement, and they just keep moving left to right. And so even though they are taking resources, they are taking what are they called? Corruption tokens that you're trying to collect, and essentially all the different win conditions that or not win conditions, but end game conditions that you're going for. They are hastening all that and taking them away from you, but there's no real, they're not considering things like I'm going to move specific to this hex, or I'm going to like, there's a lot of stuff you lose from not having to play or controlling them. And there's different things I noticed where like, as I would do a move, I'm like, oh, if this was a player though, they might move over here to block me. And I know it's not possible for the Automa to block me because they stay on this path. Right. And so some of those things I was intrigued being like, having some actual brains behind some of these moves would actually make this game more interesting. But I will say that I liked it more than I thought I would. As someone who has never been completely sure if I'm going to like Scythe when I eventually play it, and hearing your thoughts on it in the past, I left it like intrigued. There's enough trying to figure out like, every time you play one of these cards, you can play a worker onto the card you've just played if you have a worker of the right color, and so you have to try to create an engine where you have workers of that color, but eventually a lot of these cards are also being cashed in and you're losing them to hit some of those endgame conditions. So it's like you're kind of destroying a bit of your engine, but at the right time, and then acquiring new cards to rebuild your engine. So there's a few interesting things at play, and I guess like I'm not doing a full rules explanation, so I don't necessarily need like a full comparison, but I'm more just interested, is anything I'm saying sound any bit that's similar to Scythe, or does it sound like it really is sort of just like taking certain things and then changing them?
Okay, so yeah, this one, I think I have a feeling I'm going to like this one more than Scythe once I play it. So, and keep in mind, so it's been probably a year, at least 2 years now since the last time I played Scythe, possibly even 3 years. I think I've played it 3 times total over the past, 10 years or so. So each of my games has been spaced out quite a bit, so I don't remember as much of it as I'd like. but the tableau and engine building sounds a little more, I don't know, maybe a little more focused on the card play in this one, in Expeditions maybe. In Scythe, I wasn't crazy about what was actually going on the map. Like the game with the mechs and the way you're moving around on the map, I found, it kind of sets this precedent, or you maybe get the impression that it's going to be a little more combative or a little more fighty than it ends up being. And it ends up being a bit more like territory possession, I guess, or territory defense is how it kind of felt, where it's sort of like the Terra Mystica way, where you're kind of like racing to things and then establishing that you're there first and maybe keeping people further away. But again, I'm by no means like an expert player of this. So I really like in Scythe, there's like this end game achievements thing with these stars.
That's still present here. The way
Okay.
it works here is if I hit one of the goals, like if say I have to have 7 of this tile and I have it, it doesn't immediately get me the glory. Now I have to go to a hex that has the gather ability on it that lets me complete a glory. And then if I have one I can complete, I can do that. So there is this thing where if I was playing with players, a player could be like, oh, Dylan could score this, but the only one he can reach is this one. So if I go onto that tile, it'll block him from being able to score this round. And I thought that was cool, but it doesn't come up in the solo mode as much.
Okay. So yeah, honestly, I'm surprised I didn't know like a ton about this one going in, but because I was sort of, indifferent towards Scythe, I didn't love it, but I also didn't dislike it. I wasn't really like looking into Expeditions all that much, thinking that it would have been taking more from Scythe, but I don't know, it sounds a bit different. I'd be interested to try it out.
There was a couple things while playing that I just thought like, oh, like I don't think this would ever be by any means a game that Carlo is in love with, but I thought like there's things going on here that I feel like you would appreciate, even just from the fact that there's this huge deck of cards. There's always 5 face-up ones, and like you can claim the face-up cards you can draw from the deck. Each card has its own way of like, yes, you can use it as an item, but it's also one of the end game conditions if you tuck your items and stuff. And so there's a lot going on. I want to play it again. I want to play it multiplayer, and I was pleasantly surprised based on what I was expecting going in, I would say.
Cool. And how long did it take you to play solo?
It took me about an hour and a half, but that was me referring to the rulebook a lot. I think that this is easily going to be like an hour, achievable hour solo experience if I play it multiple times going forward. And I feel like playing it with, like, say you as a 2-player game, I feel like I'd imagine the first play would be like an hour and a half to 2 hours, and then we would get it under that afterwards.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so that is Expeditions. I'll probably have more to say in the future on the channel.
Okay. So here's the thing. My appetizer for this week is not specific to one game. It's specific to a publisher. So that is Splotter. So as you know, the publishers of Bus, which is... the reason I decided to make this my appetizer for the week is that I recently acquired Indonesia, which is now the second Splotter that I actually own after Bus. And Bus is the only one that you and I have both played so far. And I guess, with this still being one of the first episodes of our podcast, we've often had people recommend different Splotter games when they watch our videos, and they might not be familiar with our channel or the full experience of and breadth of games we've played. So I thought this would be a good touch point for people to kind of know where we stand with Splotter in terms of what we've played, but also what we hope and expect to play like in the somewhat near future. So I'm just going to single out the ones here that I looked through their sort of catalog of games from Bus onwards. I mean, they released a couple as well before Bus, but they didn't look particularly intriguing to me. And so I just listed them here. So we're just going to go through these quickly chronologically. So Bus, obviously we've played, I think, each 3 times now, or maybe you've played twice and I played 3. I'm not sure, but either way, amazing game. By all accounts, like one of the very first worker placement games, and just really sort of unforgiving, but very, very interactive, had a lot more going on than we thought it would based on the amount of rules. And I should say, so this is a Dutch publisher that was founded in 1997, so by 2 people, Jeroen Doomen and Joris Weersinga. And one of the things that they're quoted as saying is like specifically like, these games are not for everyone. Like they know that what they're designing is like, I think they know who's going to love them. They obviously are designing games that they would love to play themselves. And it started as like a very, very, very small company by all account. Like, I guess I should say I haven't verified this, but I always hear that they were like making these games and they're, assembling them in one of their garages and like just, sending off the games themselves, these very, very small print runs. And even if you look at the old version of Bus compared to like the reprints that Capstone has taken over in North America here and whatnot. So anyway, so that's been our entry point. So we haven't played anything else. And the only other one that we now own between the 2 of us or have access to is Indonesia. So I'm going to come back to that one because that's a little bit later. But in the same year as Bus, in 1999 as well, they released Roads and Boats. So this game is BGG says it's best with 2 players. I think it says 240 minutes, so 4 hours is just like the guaranteed kind of listed time. I've heard some people say this one can take potentially even 6 hours or more, especially the first time playing. Do you know anything about this one, Dylan? Have you heard much about this?
I don't. I would say that out of everything you've listed here, like it's the one that interests me the least, only because I just like it's such a hard sell to be like, when am I going to be able to find like 4 to 5 hours to play a 2-player game? When I could be like, but there's like 4 other 2-player games I could probably play in that time that I haven't played and want to play.
I know. So I don't know if it is actually the longest of the ones here, but I do get that impression. But it just sounds the most unique. I know this is the hardest one to acquire right now as well. I think they released their, I guess, 20-year anniversary edition a little while ago, and it was pretty expensive, and now it's kind of just, out of print again. But the fact, like I put here in our notes, right, like steal someone's donkey, like it's basically you only own the things that are actually on your transports, and it's kind of a logistics, like think about the aspect of Keyflower, like moving stuff around from tile to tile. But yeah, you can just like use people's stuff and use it as your own, and you're actually putting like a translucent screen over, and I can't remember if it's with crayons or markers, but you're like drawing on the map each time you play. Apparently it's like very loose in the like. Anyways, I imagine there'd be a lot of like rules questions, so this is kind of like a life project. Like maybe this is one I acquire in my 40s or in my 50s, and we play this one like far off in the future. So it's one I'm very interested in playing, just I'm not interested in playing it soon. Okay. Sure. So Antiquity, I'm not going to have a lot to say about this one. This one came out in 2004. I don't know a whole lot. I just remember the thing that always stands out to me about it is the fact that it has polyominoes, and the fact that it's like, an older game that has polyominoes, and the fact that it's a Splotter game. It is, I think, the heaviest, like in terms of complexity, or one of the heaviest at 4.32 rating on there. But so yeah, I don't have a ton to say about that one. Do you have anything you want to add about Antiquity?
No, that one, I basically, you said it. Like the reason that interests me is I like polyominoes, and so a Splotter polyomino game at least intrigues me, and especially with that much length. I feel like the heaviest polyomino game I've played is obviously Feast for Odin, and that's not really. It's a polyomino game in the sense that it has it, but it's not a polyomino driven game. It's more a worker placement game that has polyomino. But like Antiquity, I'd just be curious to see how they implement it.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, that one mostly made my list just because I know it's been very highly rated by a lot of people. So it felt it's probably the one I'm least interested personally, just based on what I know of the game from this list I put together here, but figured it was at least worth a mention. Okay, so then the very next year, 2005, is Indonesia. So that's the one I mentioned that I recently got a hold of. This is the third printing, and there's just, again, a very small limited print run. So part of what intrigued me about this one is that a lot of people have been recommending to us like different like Cube Rails games. Like I got to try Iberian Gauge a few months ago and was like really impressed with it. And we have that copy of Wabash Cannonball in our AYCB library, which used to be Chicago Express. So there's a lot of these like Cube Rail games that people say, like, based on what we like in games, like limited like rules and lots of decision making, quick games. People keep recommending these, and this is apparently kind of halfway between like a Cube Rails game and an intro to an 18xx game, where it's like very economic and has like the different phases of like the stock rounds and the operations, where you're like investing, but also then like actually operating your companies, and you're trying to deliver goods to different cities, and it has this like pretty epic game arc from what I've heard of. So I kind of like put out the board the other day and was looking through the components, and it looks really, really nice. The rules look similar in terms of weight to like Bus, like not a lot there. So this is another one that like it might still be a year or two before we try it, but I am intrigued by this one quite a bit more than I thought I would be, especially like wasn't really on my radar until the recent reprint all that much.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to trying this one. I don't know anything about it, and I'm probably just going to keep it that way now that you have it, and I know that I'll play it sometime soon.
Okay. Yeah, from what I know, I don't think it's going to be like a top game of all time for you, and I don't know if it will be either for me, but yeah, just still very intrigued to at least try this one. Okay, now the Great Zimbabwe. So this is 7 years after Indonesia. That's 2012. So this one has some route building and logistics, which we've talked about in some of the other ones as well. But the one thing that I always remember that every time I've heard this game talked about that sounds interesting is there's kind of like a target victory point. I think it's like 30 points that you have to reach to win the game. So it's sort of a race in that sense, but there's things you can do to like get ahead, like get certain special powers or do things throughout the game that then increase your personal victory point target separate from the other players. So it's kind of the trade-off of like, I don't know if it's like making a deal with the devil kind of implication, but it's like, hey, you want to like take this shortcut? Well, fine, then you need to win with 36 points now instead or whatnot. So yeah, that one always seemed really intriguing to me for that reason.
Yeah, again, that's one I didn't know much about, but after having quickly looked into all of them on BGG, I would say that out of them all there, it's probably the second or third one that I'm interested in trying. I just think that I've heard it come up enough, and the way you're describing it and some of the components and stuff I'm looking at, it's interesting. It looks cool.
Yeah. Okay. And then the last one is 2015's Food Chain Magnate. So this is the one that I would say put Splotter, like, I don't want to say it's the one that put them on the map like in North America, but I think it led to a lot more of their games being published here and like other publishers like Capstone, taking on like distributing Bus and stuff like that for them. So it was obviously a big one, and the one that like I remember I thought about buying this years ago. Like we did a video about games we were considering buying. I did almost buy it. The more I've heard about it, I feel like I want to try this one before I buy it. But you're basically running a like a food chain empire in, I think it's like 1950 United States, very cutthroat, like opening up businesses near your opponents or trying to like, steal, like, tilt the market in your favor. I know it's one you've also had some interest in trying in the past, right? But also kind of feeling like the try before you buy.
This is on my list of games that like I know I need to play one day and I want to play. I feel pretty confident that it's going to be, I'm going to want to play it once and I probably won't play it again in my life. And the reason I say that is just this is the thing I always struggle with the Splotter games is the fact that you can like be out of the game or essentially lose, quote unquote, like so early. It's just not something that I appreciate or think belongs in not, I shouldn't say that's the wrong way, like it, not that it doesn't belong, but for me, that's not the type of game that I want to play, and I can get around that for depending on the length of the game and with certain games, but with the way this one's described, it just feels like with that heavy of an experience, that long of an experience, if I feel early on that I made a mistake and I'm out of it, I'm going to struggle to be engaged in the game for another 2 hours, and so I'm worried about that, but I want to play it to have at least experience it and solve that blind spot for me kind of thing.
That's fair, and that is what I hear people say is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, issue with Food Chain Magnate is that you can have, like, sort of be out of it pretty early. I've also heard people say there's almost like a certain required, like you have one or two realistically like good options on your first turn. If you don't pick those, like, not to say it's fully scripted, but I've kind of heard that before. So I mean, we'll see how it actually plays out once we play it. But yeah, this is one that I really want to try as well. I know it's very high up on the BGG ratings and whatnot. So, but I don't think it's going to be anywhere near Bus. Like, I don't know if any of these really is going to come close to Bus. So we'll see. Bus set a high target for us, or a high standard in terms of the first Splotter game. So yeah, those are the ones that stood out to me. They also had Horseless Carriage in 2023, but honestly, that one seems really quite heavy and quite long as well. And like, I'm much more interested in any of these ahead of that one. So it didn't really factor in.
Yeah, fair.
Okay, well, that's it for this week's appetizers. So before we get into our main course and get back to talking about two-player games, let's take a quick break for our sponsor.
All You Can Board is proudly sponsored by Victory Pints, our local game store of choice here in Winnipeg, Canada. We strongly believe that Victory Pints is pretty much the gold standard of board game stores, and not just here in Winnipeg. Their main priority is having a wide selection of games, many of which you won't find anywhere else. They ship Canada-wide, $15 flat rate or free shipping for orders over $200, and they even take requests to try and order in specific games you're looking for. They also have a used games section where you can trade in games for in-store credit and maybe even find some hidden gems that others have traded in as well. Just note that the used games section is only available for in-person purchases and trades. Again, located in Winnipeg at the corner of Henderson and Hespeler, or you can check them out online at victorypints.ca. A massive thank you to Victory Pints for all their support over the years.
Okay, welcome back. So today's main course is Two Players, Not Enough Time. So this is sort of a follow-up or companion episode to a video that we just did earlier this week on our YouTube channel, where we picked a few categories and each made some picks for those categories within our favorite two-player games. Then we also did our updated personal top 10 lists, which we can quickly run through here again. So if you haven't checked that out, you can go check out the video on our YouTube page there. Lots of recommendations for 2-player games. And so we have a few things we want to talk about, breaking down not only, where games have moved from the last time we had done this list. The last time we had ranked our 2-player games was just over 3 years ago, back in early 2023. So the first thing I think we wanted to talk about here was that we really noticed how almost every game listed on our personal top 10 lists played in 30 minutes or less. There were a very few exceptions to these lists. Maybe we'll start actually, Dylan, do you want to quickly run down your top 10 to remind everyone here?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so number 10, I'll start at 10 to 1. So it was Patterns, then Fjords, then Toy Battle, Patchwork, Innovation, then number 5, Through the Desert, Lost Cities, Lord of the Rings, Duel for Middle-earth, formerly Seven Wonders Duel, Forest Shuffle, and then lastly, number 1, Castles of Burgundy.
All right, and for me, I also had Patterns at 10, then Santorini, Great Plains, Toy Battle, Le Havre. At number 5 was Keyforge, and then Innovation, Battle Line, Race for the Galaxy, and Carcassonne at number 1. So aside from, I would say, Le Havre on my list and Castles of Burgundy on your list, and then, sometimes Carcassonne can go over half an hour, sometimes Race for the Galaxy, depending on your experience level. Innovation is usually maybe in the 30 to 45 or 60 minute range. But aside from those, I think every other game was 30 minutes or less, and many of them are 15, 20 minutes. Do you have any specific insights about that? Have you noticed that with yourself, that you're looking more and more towards playing shorter 2-player games?
Yeah, the only other one on my list that maybe creeps up over regularly for me is Forest Shuffle, but it's possible to do Forest Shuffle shorter. But yeah, I even when, not even just when you and I play 2-player games together, but just in general when I play 2-player games, I don't often play heavy games. Even when I think back to you and I playing other games, not because we think it's going to be a super strong 2-player game, but just because it's a game that's on our list to try, or a game that we've been sent by a publisher or whatever. Even a lot of those don't, creep over an hour, or if it does, it's because it's the first play and we're learning kind of things. So I don't know if it is just something where the less players that are at the table, the less compelled I feel to get into a really heavy 3-hour game. Because then I start to think when's the last time you and I played say a 2.5 hour to 3 hour game, just you and I together? Probably at the cabin when we had the time to spare.
That's what I was going to say. Other than the cabin, we played, Slay the Spire and Fields of Arle, and I can't remember what else, maybe one more kind of longer 2-player game. But that was, again, because it was specifically the two of us there for a couple of days. So, yeah, it feels weird to almost justify being hey, come over and we're just going to play this one game for 2 or 3 hours. Yeah.
And that was even what was sort of happening. I know that you and I both approached a GNC as a game being this could be one where if we both like it, maybe we get really into this and we play it competitively and we see how deep it goes because of the Carl Chuddick aspect and for you at the time with Innovation. But I think something that came out of that was just our plays were taking very long of that one. I think that was almost deterring us from wanting to be yeah, let's sit down and just play this game for an hour and 10 minutes or whatever it is. It's not that was insanely long, but it felt longer than necessary for what we were hoping at that time to have land for us, right?
Yeah, and it felt the only way to get quicker at playing it was to make sure we played it a lot more really soon. And it's tough when you have this competitive field where there's always good games being released. We can't even keep up with the amount of new releases, let alone tracking down old 2-player releases that we haven't found or played yet, or ones that we can't even get access to or whatever. So yeah,
I think ultimately the question of why we maybe lean towards those shorter games, what is the answer, is just I think that the 2-player space is the closest I get, or sometimes it is where I get feel okay to get competitive. That's where I enjoy getting competitive with board games, when I know there's only one other person to consider and I'm going to play a game multiple times with that same person. And so I'm not just learning the game, I'm learning how they approach the game. There's a way to sort of measure yourself that you're coming back to, and for some reason I will feel okay getting into a competitive space more so with a two-player game, especially if it's quick playing and we can either play multiple games on the spot or know we're going to easily be able to get it to the table and come back to, versus if I'm playing, say, a four-player game and I might play it again, yes, but then I'm playing with completely different people sometimes and it feels like that I'm teaching it and they haven't played it. Or if we're talking like a game like Fields of Arle, where yes, like I would be really fun to get competitive with that, but it only feels to me like I want to get competitive with that if we're going to be reliably playing it, like say once a month or something, where I can measure myself and I can know, oh yeah, you won last time and I remember the strategy you went into and so, right?
That's interesting. I honestly hadn't thought that. Like, I would have never thought of it from from that angle for you, about it being like that's the sort of, you know, arena where you're more comfortable being more competitive. Like, do you think does anything about that come from like feeling like, you know, you can do things to deny the other player without it feeling like you're targeting them, like, rather than other players, right? Like, if it's a four-player game and you do that to someone, are they going to feel like, why are you picking on me? Whereas it's like, well, you're my only opponent. Like, this is the only other way I can win.
That's definitely part of it. Like, definitely part of it is the fact that I know there's only one person I can target, so it no longer has to be this meta thing of I have to discern who's further ahead in the game. And then if the amount of times that I've been in a game, and no, never maliciously, I want to make that clear, but like where I've targeted someone and someone's like, oh, we got to stop this person though, and I'm like, well, but honestly, I'm not playing the game to figure out like who to stop. Like, the first thing I'm going to do is play my own game, and the second thing I'm going to do is be like, okay, now if I have to target someone, like, yeah, who should that be? But as soon as I have to like sit down there and try to either math that or to be like, okay, is there a way I can not target Carlo and target Braden instead because I think Braden's further ahead? That doesn't become as interesting to me to do it that way. And yeah, and I think it also just comes back to the fact that if you, me, and Braden play a 3-player game, and then I play that same game, but I play it with my friends Jake and Corbin, it's like, yes, I can approach that game competitively, but now I'm playing with two different people who have their own styles, and it's rare that I say play a 3 or 4-player game with the same people over and over. Like, if we played bus every single month, I would for sure get into the competitiveness of that with this, especially if it was the same people. But I feel like that's something that needs to be there for me to feel like I want to lean into that competition, is regular play with the same people.
Okay. Yeah, and I think just to add to that real quick is I think having the shorter games also makes it so that it feels like there's less, like the stakes are lower for every game. Like, if we get together and we play 3 or 5 small 2-player games, each one that you win or lose is like, oh, not like who cares, not as into like degrade how meaningful it was, but just to say like it doesn't feel like there was a lot riding on that. Like, if you did really poorly, like let's say we meet up and we just play one game and we play for 2 hours and you like triple my score, we might feel differently about the overall experience and the time that we like spent playing that one game versus playing 3 or 5, you know, again, lighter games. So I know that we tend to do that even sometimes within the same game, like a series, like a best of 3 or best of 5 series. But I find even then we tend to just like, yeah, play 3 or 4 shorter games rather than the one big game.
Yeah, like even compare, like imagine us sitting down to play even Agricola, like which I know we're going to play at 2 players sometime soon. Imagine sitting us down to play that, and you know, 45 minutes into the game, I make a move and you respond, and I go, oh, I didn't even think of that, I didn't see that, and like it's like a mistake I've made, and then you are able to capitalize, and you should capitalize, but then that sort of shapes the game. That can shape like a game that's going to take an hour and a half and kind of be like, oh, like, yeah, like, and then you can even feel like, this happened to us even in Rival Cities recently, where it's like you can then look and be like, it doesn't feel as great to know that Dylan made a mistake and then I capitalize, versus like if we're playing Toy Battle and it's like 4 minutes into an 8-minute game and I make a mistake and you capitalize, the answer is let's go again, and I'm gonna make sure I don't make that mistake again. You can't really do that as reliably with a heavy game, and I think that's why I feel safer also getting into the competition. Is like, I will play aggressively or like haphazardly or risky, because in an 8-minute game, if it doesn't pay off, I'll at least have been like unpredictable and made you be like, what is going on, and then we can just play it again, and I can try to be like, play it a little differently or whatever. So
yeah. Well, this is making me think about stuff that I wasn't even planning on bringing up, but like I want to ask you now quickly about like, how do you feel about like surrendering in a game? Like, that's not something that I don't think, like, maybe there's certain games, specific games, maybe something like a Santorini, where like it feels like it's just delaying the inevitable. But like, how often has that ever even crossed either of our minds playing a two-player game, other than like, again, Magic back in the day? Like, is there anything where we would actually say like, hey, I'll surrender without feeling bad about shortening the game for the other player, maybe, who's like running their engine?
It never feels good to me. Like, even say, I'll use Toy Battle as an example because that's the shortest one I can think of. Say it's like early on and you know you're looking at a tray that you can't respond and I'm going to be able to win. It's like, why concede when playing it out is going to take 30 seconds max, right? Like at that point, it's like, let the game play out and let's see it. But then on the reverse side, on like a heavy game, it just seems like conceding a heavy game 45 minutes in because you're like, I can't see a way for me to claw back. It's not going to feel good to either person, but then it might not feel good playing it out either. And so, yeah, like I don't know that I would ever. The Magic the Gathering back in the day sometimes makes sense to concede, but I mean, even then, like that's only because we were playing so much of it that sometimes it's like us conceding means we can just shuffle our decks and play again, versus why we would play this out for 10 more minutes and lose the chance to just play another game of Magic, right?
Yeah. Honestly, I think it's a good sign that it hasn't really factored into any of our two-player gaming in a while, because like, that's not an ideal way to have to settle a game.
Sure.
Okay, so why don't we? Why don't we just go actually use this as a transition right into Toy Battle, because we were going to obviously pick out some games from our list, and you were just talking about it. So Toy Battle, a 2025 release, which just came out of nowhere to number 7 on my top 10 and number 8 on yours. I was so glad to see it that high on both lists. Like, I knew you liked it. I know we both own copies. You were the first one to get it, and I was like, yeah, I need to own this immediately after playing. Like, what else can we say that I know we talked about it a decent amount in the video, but like the bang for your buck, right, with the 8 maps and what the game costs and like just the replay value, I feel like it's a game that is getting easier and easier to recommend to more and more people confidently.
I think the biggest thing that I'm happy about to come out of Toy Battle is that it really in some ways lights a fire under all designers and publishers in terms of showing how much you should and can and should, whatever, can pack into a single 2-player game box in terms of replayability. Like, they didn't have to put, if they had put 4 maps, even 2 maps, maybe 2 would be too little, but if they had put 4 maps in the box, no one would have said like, oh, the value here, like they really should have put 8 maps. Like, them doing 8 maps is really just, in my opinion, is really just enhancing what you get out of this. That was a choice to give you more for your buck. And especially when you see how much each map can change things, how much it shapes the strategy in terms of the distance between the castles, in terms of what the special powers are, in terms of the connections and how you can capitalize, how early you play a skeleton versus how early you just draw tiles. Like, it shapes so much, and 8 different ones means that every time you play, especially if you're just randomizing it, you can go so long before you're really feeling like you're treading the same ground. And so just kudos to them for doing that. And I hope it encourages more publishers and designers to say, yes, we could just include this, because how many times have we talked about like, oh, if there was just more cards, or if there was just more of this, like it seems like it's ripe for that, but like, are they just saving that for an expansion? Was it a cost thing? Whereas Toy Battle comes along and it's like, here's 8 different maps for you to play on. And I'm just like, hell yeah, like great choice. That's like my favorite thing about this.
Yeah, they could have easily tried to hold that back and like, have an intentional first expansion, and who knows, maybe there is some expansion in the works, but yeah, I really love the way they just put this all in the base game as well. And I will just say one more quick thing is, I laughed when you brought up like the sort of Clash of Clans look to the art, because like you definitely have a point there. It has grown on me a little bit in the same way, in a similar way to like Challengers, where like the art at first was a bit off-putting, or maybe seemed a little too like it was being marketed as a kid's game. But I think it maybe works in its favor in the sense that, like, I hope this does make it sell more copies, to see more people think of it as like, hey, maybe I can play this with my like fairly young kids, because again, like the rules really aren't that complicated. I imagine it's a game that I'll end up playing with my kids when they get older. They'll probably play with each other, so I'm interested to see what kind of legs this has in the long run.
Yeah, and to be fair to the art's credit, this might be a case of me, like almost a get off my lawn type of thing, where I just really don't like mobile games and mobile game art, and how like if you look at like the icons of mobile games, they all look like they're made by the exact same studio, because they're all capitalizing off the very same trend that has been going on forever. But on the flip side, if that's the thing that makes this an entry level game for some people, because I think it's such a great game of you can get in and not have to know the strategy, but the more you play, the more you naturally uncover it. It can act as a gateway game for a lot of people. And if that is happening and all it took was artwork that they can resonate with, then like who am I to really be upset about that? It's more just that like it was going to have to feel somewhat childish because it's about toys and I love the theme. I just wish it didn't have that like 3D-ish, like, I don't even know how to describe, but that look that is specifically so tied to mobile gaming.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. It like you look at it and it doesn't like have its distinct look that is different from all other games. You can kind of go, oh, it kind of looks like this, kind of looks like this. So, okay, let's move on to Patterns, which snuck in at number 10 for both of us. So this is a 2023 release, I believe. I think it only maybe got to North America in 2024. So this wasn't even, out last time we did our top 10 games. But I like how it snuck in at number 10, right at the exact same spot for both of us. So real quick, this is in the mandala style. The main hook of this is the fact that it's like completely abstract. It's played on a cloth mat that you roll out, and there's 6 different colors of tokens in the game. And you're basically locking in the value of each color's scoring throughout the game. So the earlier you lock in a color, it's going to be worth, like every token of that color that you have on the map that's joined together in a route is going to be worth 1 point. And as you go up, like the 5th and 6th color will, those pieces will each be worth 5 and 6 points. But it's done in a different style from Mandala, which came out, I believe it was in 2019 by the same designers. We really liked that one as well. So yeah, did you feel confident that Patterns was going to make your top 10 before like making the list? I know you used Pub Meeple, but how did that one sneak in there for you?
I felt pretty confident it was. I actually thought it wasn't going to just sneak in at 10. I thought it might be a little bit higher, but there was just too many other games with like Innovation and Toy Battle that came along and Force Shuffle that bumped it. I will say, and I'm curious to hear what you think about this, it is the game on the list that I think its spot is completely dictated by how little I've played it. The fact, and that says a lot. Like I've played Patterns not that much, and it's number 10. If I had played Patterns as much as I played Toy Battle, I feel I'm very confident it would be higher than 10, but I think that there's even a possibility it could be as high as something like 5. I don't know if it would go higher than that, but I left with such a strong impression of it, and even though I know you haven't played it, it's the same feeling I had inside playing my first game of Iliad recently that I had when I played the first 1 or 2 games of Patterns, where there's enough that makes me smile and excites me that I think, ooh, there is something magical here. But if, like, again, Toy Battle, I liked when I first played, but it's only after now playing it like 40, 50 times that I'm thinking, this is an amazing 2-player game. And I think Patterns is going to be that. I just think we have to commit to playing it more. And it's one that I just don't offer as a suggestion enough to players, to not just with you, but like in general. And I need to, because I think there's tons of potential there.
I think so too. And it's just interesting how different it is from Toy Battle in the sense that like Toy Battle has like the 8 different units and the different maps and all this stuff, whereas Patterns is just like these circular tokens that have a color on them. Like there isn't a single, yes. There's no text, there's no actual artwork. Like it's just so bare bones.
So abstract.
Yeah, exactly. I can't wait to play it again. Yeah, I think we've played it maybe 3 or 4 times, and I agree. Yeah. It could move way higher up on my list as well. But I'm glad to hear this. I didn't know you liked it as much as it sounds like you do.
Yeah, so. It just needs more plays, but it was really surprising in a good way.
Yeah. Okay, now let's talk about innovation. So this was number 4 for me and number 6 for you. So this was new to your list, and I moved up my list a bit. I think it was number 5 or 6 the last time we ranked ours. So yeah, I'm surprised to see it as high as it is on your list of like all-time 2-player games.
I owe it all to all these async games I'm playing on BGA constantly. Like I played a bunch with Dave and a bunch with Braden async, and then I played against Dave in person, and then we also tried using one of the expansions. And yeah, it's just I think it's something with me. As soon as I feel comfortable with competition in a game like this, that sort of it creates this amazing space for competition and playing multiple times, where there's only one other person. I think I would struggle with innovation. I think I would enjoy trying it at 3 and had the odd game for the chaos at 3, but I don't think resonate with it nearly as much, because I want there to just be this one person that I'm focused on. And I love the moments in innovation where I think I'm being so sly, where I play something, I'm like, oh, next turn I'm going to use this amazing dogma ability. And like I shouldn't be surprised, but the fact that my opponents will have eyes on that ability and say like, no, I see how important that ability is, and there's no way I'm not going to play this icon to make it so that I don't also benefit. Like, I guess it's because I don't often look at the other person's abilities and say, how can I stop them by playing icons? It happens, but the more that people do that to me, the more I feel compelled to have to do that as well, and that opens up a whole other avenue of what I'm looking at in innovations. So I feel like it's funny. Like this is another one where it's already number 6 for me, but I feel like this could climb higher. Like I feel like I'm still only scratching the surface of innovation, and if you and I start playing it regularly, in person especially, I could see that alone bumping it a few spots.
Yeah, honestly, like I said, I'm so thrilled that you've been loving this as much as you have. Like, it was, I think, right around like number 20 every time we've done like our top 50 games of all time. Like, so not just 2-player like exclusively, but man, what a game! What a game! Just so chaotic. And I'm glad you brought up a GNC before as well, because obviously that one didn't make either of our lists, and is another one that, I mean, I could pretty confidently say I think that a GNC is never going to reach the heights of something like innovation for us, but it would be another interesting one to revisit. So I just want to touch on that before I forgot about GNC completely. And totally. This new edition of innovation does look really nice, like comparatively to, I know you're kind of smirking over there because you're like, I remember what you said about the way the art looks just like functional and like the government office kind of thing in your video, which I thought was really appropriate. But if you've seen the other, like the first and second edition, or like even just the way it's implemented on Board Game Arena, it does look a lot more drab. They've kind of given it a little bit more color and liveliness. And yeah, I might end up actually getting the Ultimate Edition one of these days, but we'll see.
Nice.
Okay, now let's talk about Forest Shuffle. So this made it up to number 2 on your list, which was why, like, I was kind of expecting it to just sneak into your top 10. Did not make my list at all, but honestly wasn't too far. Like, it wasn't at number 12 or anything, but it might have been inside the top 20 if I had ranked that many. So yeah, what do you want to say about Forest Shuffle, your number 2-player game?
Yeah, I mean, it's especially if you don't count BGA, it's absolutely my most played 2-player game of the past couple of years. It's like my go-to game with my partner. We play without the expansion, we play with all the expansions. We play Dartmoor as well now. Just the entire Forest Shuffle system I've come to appreciate a lot. It definitely isn't as tight as a lot of games on this list, but I think that's also what I appreciate about it, is that there's a bunch of really tight tactical and strategical games on this list to do with, like, say, like Toy Battle as another, like going back to that as an example, or Carcassonne on yours and stuff that would just missed mine. Whereas with Forest Shuffle, I feel like I have way more flexibility and I don't play it as meanly or competitively as the others, and sort of let the game. I'm always trying something new when I play Forest Shuffle, or at the very trying something new while I'm trying to stop my partner from doing something that's getting her a lot of points. And I guess that level of exploration still exists there for me, and that's something I really love about games. Like even some of my favorite games, it's because of the exploration element or what I can try. And so because that's still there in Forest Shuffle, it's just honestly, without knowing for sure, I think there's a good chance Forest Shuffle, when we do our top 50s, might be in my top 10 games of all time. If at the very least, it's going to probably be top 20. And that's just because of how much I'm playing it and still resonating with it. And I mean, the theme is great. The depth's great. I have thoughts about like how much they're expanding and the fact that like Dartmoor already has an expansion announced and stuff. But like taking all my thoughts on that aside, the game that I'm playing continues to compel me and continues to feel like this cozy, comforting game that me and my partner kind of return to regularly over coffee on Sunday mornings and stuff. And so I think that like it's going to be the one that I think is closest to what you feel with Agricola, where how you have all this nostalgia tied into Agricola and how that shapes or colors where it's going to, like when it'll ever get bumped out of number 1, or how you think about it. I feel like Forest Shuffle for me, there's going to be a time where I have to try to like get in there and separate, like, okay, how much is this I love the game versus how much is this I love sitting down and playing this game with my partner, or do I need to separate that? Is that fair enough? And just like that's part of what makes it such a great game. Like I don't know, I have a lot of thoughts to do with Forest Shuffle.
That's awesome. And it's one that I think realistically, like if I do get to play it a bunch more, it's probably going to be mostly either with you or on Board Game Arena.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I haven't found the consistent like partner who wants to play. Like I showed it to Anna and she liked it a decent amount, but I don't know if we'll like get back to it again all that soon. It's definitely not going to be like a go-to game between us, I don't think. I think just with having young kids, the time that it takes, we're usually looking for something in that like under half hour again kind of mark.
Yeah.
But I do like Forest Shuffle quite a bit, and I'm surprised at how much it has grown on me. Especially, I will say so far I do like the base game. With both expansions, the first two expansions, as my preferred version, like ahead of Dartmoor or ahead of just base game. But I'd be curious to see how that might change over time.
Yeah, me too.
All right, now let's talk about Res Arcana. So this is an interesting one because this is a game that the first time we ever played this, we both were kind of like indifferent towards it, didn't like it all that much. The game then grew on both of us quite a bit over time, got almost into our top 10. I think it was like number 11 or 12 or 13 range for maybe both of us in the same time we ranked our games in 2023. And then since, and I think it was my number 4 two-player game the last time we did this list 3 years ago. So we've both cooled on it. I've obviously cooled on it even more. Do you want to tell me why you've cooled on it or why it's not even on your list anymore? I think it was number 7 for you last time.
I think a large part of it is just not getting it played. And then so I asked myself, why isn't it getting played? I mean, besides the fact that I don't own my own copy, but I have ways to play it on BGA. And if I asked to borrow it from you, like you would have said, yes, I know. So I think really what it comes down to is the same thing that you feel, is that it can often feel like a single turn is unsatisfying in Res Arcana, but a group of 10 turns is very satisfying in Res Arcana. And I'm always at odds with that, because it is really satisfying to look at this, what you end up with or what you draft, and then try to make it work, and then have that come together and start to see the pieces fall into place. But because you can have like 4 uninteresting turns in the midst of that, if you have 4 uninteresting turns and it's only after those 4 not great turns that your opponent thwarts your plans, it feels worse. Then like to see that not come together because you just spent 4 turns of doing not great stuff to have your opponent stifle you. It's like I want to be like, stifle me 4 turns earlier so I could have done something else that was more fun, right? So that's really what it is. Like I'm realizing more and more that that's just going to be a barrier that's probably going to keep it from getting played. And the only reason I suggested even on the video Res Arcana Duo is I forgot that it's more of like a watered down version. There's a part of me that like had hoped when that was getting announced that it was like, let's take everything that's working about the 2-player version of Res Arcana and fix the things that aren't to make the definitive 2-player version of it, right? But if that's not what it is, then I'm way less interested, because it seems like Res Arcana is already good at 2, just like fix the problems to keep it from being better, right?
Yeah, I just find it's, like you said, the turns, like, it's very low on those exciting moments. And it's the type of game where we've talked about this before, about games where we like score 0 points or where we don't do well, like they can kind of make you feel stupid, but like in a way that doesn't feel bad. And in this game, I feel like when it makes you feel stupid, it feels worse than in a lot of other games. Like,
Right.
because you just see how far you're falling behind, or you see someone else like just running away with their engine. They suddenly are up to like 6 or 7 points, and they're just taking action after action, and you passed after like 4 actions because you miscalculated something, or they beat you to this key place of power, and now you're just falling behind. So I just feel like doing poorly in this game, you don't have a lot of fun compared to a lot of other games where you can still enjoy, and just knowing you've lost in round 2 potentially, like
it's the closest we will come to a game on this list probably that will make someone like, we almost both want someone to concede, because like it's like, yes, I'm so far ahead and I'd like to see this engine through, but if you're completely disengaged, it's like, why are we playing this out, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's a weird game. I respect how well it all works, like, and the way that the theme and everything comes together is like surprisingly well done. But it's just, I feel like I'm just gravitating towards playing it less and less these days. But I would like to try it with the Perle Imperii expansion again, because I've only played with that once, and adding in the pearls and like just how valuable they are, and making it up to 13 points instead of 10 now does make it interesting. So. Okay, now let's talk about Santorini. So this was previously your number 3, and it's off your list. And it was, I think, my number 4 or 5. I think it was my number 5 or 6, maybe. It was high up on mine, and it dropped to number 9. Almost dropped completely off my list too. What do you think has happened here with Santorini, Dylan? Why is it falling off both of our lists like this?
You're just not playing it enough. Like, so I should say it was, I think it was somewhere around 11 or 12 in my pub meeple ranking. So just barely off the list. I will say it probably could have dropped a couple more spots, but what kept it on there are like, funny enough, was me playing the solo Rise of the Sphinx or something
Riddle of the Sphinx.
Riddle of the Sphinx. Because it reminded me of the Santorini system and had me re-engaging with it and sort of helped me remember what it is I love about Santorini. But I just think I don't think we've played it in a long time, and I certainly haven't played it with anyone else in a long time. I think I played it once with my partner in the last year, but probably closer to being a year ago. So I just feel like we need to almost like to figure out how we ultimately feel, like just do a best of 3 of it sometime soon, and then do we leave that reinvigorated, being like, okay, we got to keep this going again, or we do leave it being like still good, but I think its time is ending or something. I don't know. I feel like that's what it is for me.
Yeah, I feel like when we have that amount of time to play, we've talked about this before, how often do we just play one round of Santorini? Almost never. And if we think we're going to play one game multiple times in a short span, even just talking about Toy Battle again, like we have these other short games that are just going to get ahead of it right now. So it feels like it's in a weird spot. We've had some really like good memories playing it, and I would never say no to playing a game of it. It's so enjoyable. I don't feel, and I'm not even considering getting rid of it from my collection anytime soon. But it almost, I don't know how long it'll stay in my sort of top 10 2-player games unless we find we're actually, going back to it regularly.
Without giving any specifics, I'll give a little tease here and just say that there's an idea that we're thinking about doing on the channel soon that I think would be an opportunity for Santorini to make a bit of a comeback, or at least have an opportunity, I should say, to come back. And that'll maybe be the test to see how we feel about it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like it. Okay, and last one that we're going to talk about just from our personal top 10 list here is Carcassonne, which is still my number 1, which has been up there forever. And I believe you said it just missed your list, right?
Yep, it was in that 11 to 15 range as well. And this is one that if I had played it a little bit more with you, I think it would have cracked the top 10, and I think it probably will in my top 2-player games one day. I feel pretty confident in saying that. I think I just need to play it more, and I do think that if we can make this a game that we are regularly competing at, whether it's on BGA, whether it's in person, ideally both, that not only will it climb, it'll end up becoming like a mainstay competition thing between us, because you're still much better at it than me. I know I beat you when we were at the cabin, but I don't think that was necessarily indicative of like me training or getting good to be able to like accomplish that. I think it was just the way that game unfolded. There's certain things that I would say the thing you're much better than me at in Carcassonne that is where I need to be way more aware of you when we play, is you stifling my meeple economy. I have not, like in a game of Carcassonne, I don't think I have yet played in a way where I'm looking for opportunities to trap another player's meeple to hold them back from being able to do more things. And I'm realizing that's sort of necessary, or at the very least, you have to have an eye on it, because if there's the way you can stop them and trap a meeple, that's so huge of a swing, or can be. And there's a few times in the last game we played in BJ where you did that to me that I just realized, I needed to have a way closer eye on this. And this is on me. So
it's hard. It's one of those things, like I'm just gonna have that like advantage in that category because of how many more times I've played it and know the tile set. So, but like there's even things like, maybe one day I'll point out a couple things that you can do as well to play more defensively, even if you're not actively looking to like strand the other player's meeples. There's ways that you can place yours to maybe make them less susceptible to getting stranded. But I was gonna bring up the fact that like I was like the fact that you beat me on the first play, and when I've played this game hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, you play it like 10 times. It was impressive. You played really well. You deserve that win. I know you're trying to downplay it, but like I was like, okay, Dylan's already better at Carcassonne than I was expecting here.
So that was my goal. I just wanted to let you know that this isn't going to be an easy win every time.
Good. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, so those are the games that we wanted to highlight from our personal top 10 lists, and just things that have either shifted or whatnot, games that might have missed out. So the next thing we want to talk about is, do we need to make more time for 2-player games? Is this something that ever weighs on you, Dylan?
I mean, I wouldn't say it weighs on me where I've been like, I'll be sort of stewing on like, oh man, I'm not finding enough time, or we're not finding enough time for 2-player games. But in some ways, yes, like especially when we're scheduling game nights, each week or different weeks, I know it comes up multiple times where we sort of say like, should we invite anyone else or whatever? And we're torn between, like, we have a bunch of great 2-player games we can play, but we have usually more games to play that we want to play at higher counts, or ones that are at least more compelling or interesting because of like lots of reasons. But I feel like I'm also just like at different times disrespecting how compelling and how interesting so many of the 2-player games that are on this list, for instance, or ones that I want to play are. And maybe we need to sort of like, not saying, oh, every Tuesday we're playing 2-player games, not like that, but more saying like, if we're going to play games, like let's make sure we're at least twice a month or 4 times a month or whatever is doable doing it. Or yeah, finding ways like on the channel or whatever to just like be getting more plays in, because there's a lot to be said about these games. And I think we're seeing with games like Toy Battle that 2 players, even maybe more so than some like a lot of bigger games, that opinions are really shaped by playing that game like 30 times, right? Compared to playing it even 10 times. Like after playing Toy Battle 10 times, I had a very different opinion playing it 30 times. And that's a big swing. So that to me is something that just, yeah, I think we need to generate or dedicate more time for it for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And I wish it was as easy as just saying, let's spend more time playing 2-player games. I think you'd probably agree that, like, in general, we tend to usually prefer having our game nights, like, ideally with 3 or 4 players, maybe sometimes 5 if we're looking to play, like, a higher player count game like Modern Art or Zuvadis or El Grande or something like that. But it just feels tough to prioritize a 2-player game night when you know that there's a chance that, like, other people in our game group might be free. And there's like, I don't know, I kind of sometimes feel a bit of that guilt of like, well, what if this person was free and then I'm just inviting someone else over for 2-player games instead. But then obviously, like, when we actually play those 2-player games, we often feel like we get that feeling of we need to play this more. Like, oh, maybe we should make it more of a priority to schedule 2-player game nights. Like, how do we wrestle between that, like wanting to have more of the 3, 4, 5-player games that don't get played enough, but also finding time for these?
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it's a good problem to have. Like we know so many people in our group of friends that want to play board games that struggle to find time like we do. And so yeah, as soon as we have a night, it's like, well, why wouldn't we like potentially get a 5-player game of something going? Because can be rare sometimes to be able to have everyone's schedules coalesce to be like, okay, now we can do a full game of Modern Art versus like having to be intentional about finding time where when can we get everyone's schedules to align, right?
Yeah, for sure. And so how much of this, like, this draw towards playing 2-player games in general, how much of our love of 2-player games do you think comes back to us playing Magic together growing up? Like, not saying that that's maybe necessarily consciously in your mind while playing it or scheduling it, but...
We've been programmed from our time. We didn't know it at the time, but us as children playing Magic the Gathering that much was programming us to have an inherent love for like strategic 2-player games. I'm sure a lot of it does. Like that, I thought often about if I were to, because I don't know if you have any semblance, but if I were to try to like figure out how many hours, how much games, like how much time I've actually spent playing Magic the Gathering, would that be my most played game, right? Or would it be in contention? Would it be in my top 5? Probably. Like I don't have any way of knowing how many games we've played, but that for a long time, we would get together and we would just like be like, you have 7 decks, I have 7 decks, we're going to do a mini tournament, or we're going to play every deck against every deck, or I'm going to like keep taking every deck I have against your green deck until I can beat it or something, or, and then that's not even factoring the time we spent deck building and trading and looking at our cards. So like, I mean, yeah, it's probably, if not our most played game, it's up there. And so I feel like no matter whether we realize it or not, it is like probably constantly influencing things about our, mind when it comes to gaming. It's just built in there now.
Well, and it's interesting because when I hear a lot of other people talk about that, the fact that they used to play a lot of Magic, they're often seeking out similar like 2-player card games that give you that kind of like dueling feeling. And even though we do play some of those together, like a lot of the games that we talked about that were in our top 10s were not those style of games. Like there's the odd 2-player, head-to-head card dueling kind of game, but a lot of them are just kind of like played on a shared board, like stuff like Toy Battle and Patterns that's sneaking in there. But I wonder how much of it, maybe that factors in like the variety of Magic, like trying out the new decks, having those mini series. Maybe that's part of what we're trying to like unknowingly recapture with the quicker, shorter games, is like just get a quick new experience where the stakes don't feel super high and then move on to something else quickly.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like there is probably a pull inside of me to want, like in some of the ways, the way we've approached a GNC, or now ways we're thinking about innovation, I'm almost trying to like find a game that maybe it exists, maybe it doesn't, where it's essentially Magic the Gathering in a box with that kind of like depth, deck building, replayability, trying new strategies, but completely void of the need to like, well, sorry, I want there to be expansions. I want there to be ways to expand, but I don't want it to be booster pack related. And I feel like Keyforge for sure came close. The one thing that I always struggled with Keyforge is I like there being no deck customization. That is something I do really enjoy. And so I love the puzzle of like, here's a deck. Can I find a way to make it really viable and good? But you will, like we've seen, you will get a deck where it's like, you will play it 10 times. You're like, nope, this deck is just trash. And so like, that can be funny, that can be enjoyable, but like I wish I could just find a game that felt as good, as deep, as addictive as Magic in a box. You can expand it if you want. It's not necessary. You bring that one box over. You and I like can do best of 3, best of 5 with it, where we can like in between games, maybe there's ways to like customize or flip cards out or have like a weird kind of like mini sideboard thing going on to like match your opponent. I don't know. This game probably does exist. It's just to figure out that it is the right game. You'd have to play it again so many times to be like, okay, yeah, after 15 plays, it is starting to sing. And it can be a hard sell sometimes to be like, well, the one we will know is to play a GNC 15 times. And it's like, well, that's 15 hours maybe of gaming, right? So, and then not that I wouldn't enjoy that, but like there's other games we want to play too, right?
Yeah, and even when you mention another 2-player card game of that sort, like maybe this is the best time to kind of like transition into our last section here, which is kind of rapid fire listing some 2-player games we haven't tried yet that we'd like to try for the first time, or games we'd like to dive into more that maybe we've played once or whatever. But Altered comes to mind when you're talking about Magic, because obviously this is this kind of relatively new 2-player card game that feels like it's got some DNA similar from games like Magic or even Hearthstone or Keyforge, and the fact that it has the bit of the deck building, it has the implementation on Board Game Arena. I know we have those packs that we still have to open up, and maybe once we start playing that a little bit, maybe we'll get a bit of that, the magic from Magic that feels like it comes back.
Yeah, I hope so. And like the problem I have with like, I'm excited to open those packs and to play Altered more and see like, okay, do I feel stronger about it? Does it, stay exactly where it feels now? Is there more depth when there's some deck building and things I can customize? But with all those TCGs or games where there are booster packs and all that kind of stuff, there is this thing always in the back of my mind where, right, but if the game doesn't do well, they'll just stop making it. They'll just stop selling it, right? And it's a perpetual thing because there's constantly new sets coming out. And with Altered and even with Keyforge, I think still, they go to crowdfunding, right? And so like, to me, that's a sign where it's like, we need the crowd to accept this and support it for it to be viable. And it's almost like starting a TV series in season 1, but like, then it gets canceled at the end of season 1. It's like, I've been jaded by that so many times that often I'll wait to see, okay, is the show going to get picked up before I get excited about this? And that starts to feel that way about Altered sometimes, where I'm like, I don't think it's doing super great, but I enjoyed it. But am I going to be like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to get into it. And then they're going to be like, well, Altered is going away. And I'm going to be like, well, I guess I can just play what exists. But now if I really like it, I'm going to be devastated that I can never have more of it, right? So yeah, the Altered is on my list for sure of one that I want to play more with you and just see how we both feel about it, especially now that like we have the play mat, we have all this physical product. I do want to play on BGA, but I want to set it up on the table and actually play the physical version so it has that more like magic feel, right?
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's make a point to open up our packs together in person one day, and then maybe that'll be the kind of impetus we need to get started on actually playing it.
Yeah, for sure. What other games do you have on your like list of games that?
So I'll rattle them off real quick here.
Yeah.
So a bunch are from this kind of like Bitewing 2-player line. Like a bunch are from last year. Some of them we already have access to, like Icar and Iliad and Gazebo, which you've already played. I think 2 of those 3.
Gazebo and Iliad, and out of them, I would say. I don't know. I think Gazebo you're going to be happy to play once, and they'll be like, yeah, I play it again, but I don't think you're going to like love it. And because at least that's how I feel, and I feel you'll have a similar feeling. Whereas Iliad, all I know is that after one play, I was like, this might be a game I end up loving, and And it's kind of got that toy battle quickness without the same variety, I would say. Like maybe this one after 10 plays starts to be like, okay, yeah, I've seen everything. But those 10 plays might be special because that first play, I was like smiling from ear to ear. I really liked it.
Okay, and I think the other one, I think Icar was you're saying this was Iliad, right?
Iliad,
Icar, yeah. Icar, I think, is a redesign or re-implementation. Iliad, I think, is a completely new one, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Like Iliad, and they both have the same kind of like board, but like a completely different way, it seems like, of how they utilize it. But
Right, okay. And then, so Bitewing actually has 2 more slated for 2026. I think one of them is already on Board Game Arena. They've got Azur and Moitura. Neither of those are Knizia. There's also Agent Avenue, which has been released in a bunch of spots already. We haven't had access to a copy, but we'll hopefully be getting our hands on that soon, which kind of has that like I split you choose kind of bluffing 2-player game kind of thing going on. I also have Matainai on our list here, which we each just recently picked up a copy of. So again, from Carl Chuddick, and we'll say
he's never going to let you. He's never going to forgive you for that.
I only hope he's listening to this. But yeah, we'll see. I don't know if that's going to quite live up to Innovation, but it's sort of like a remake of Glory to Rome, which has been like a grail game of mine for a while. So I have a feeling we're both going to like that one quite a bit, though. It seems really, really interesting. I have Carcassonne the Castle on here, which is another grail game. That's Knizia's version of Carcassonne, where there's actually like a map that has like an outer border, so you're not restricted. Or sorry, you are restricted, whereas in the actual like base Carcassonne, you can just build your castle out in whatever directions.
Yeah, if you're a listener out there and you ever get wind of where a copy of that Carcassonne the Castle resides that someone's looking to get rid of, let us know, or let Carla know for sure.
Yeah, I think, and honestly, there's been people who've chimed in, like in Europe, apparently it's very easy to find for like 20 or 30 euros secondhand. It's just not very common here in North America. So I'm sure I'll track down a copy soon enough. I also had Android Netrunner on my list. I know it's kind of like a big thing to jump into. I don't think it's something we would just like casually try one day, but I know a lot of people say that's like one of the best, if not the best 2-player game ever. Like a lot of people swear by that, and especially considering our love for Magic, feels like one we should have played by now.
Yeah, and that one, because there's now this like other company that's taking it over and has like essentially like, it's not, it used to be that where do I even find it all, but now you can just like buy their new like starter pack or starter kit or whatever, which is like the new official like starting point, unofficial official starting point or whatever. I feel like at some point we can just say we're going to order this, we're going to give it a shot, and if we like it, we can always go into it more.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, other than that, just a few more real quick. Some of the other GIF games, I recently got to try Yinch with Braden, which was my first one in that series, and I really liked it. So I definitely want to try like Devon and Tsar, and I don't remember many of the other ones. Those are 2 of the ones that have been most highly recommended. I know that we, at some point, it feels like we should try War of the Ring. I know we have access to War of the Ring, the card game, which we played with 4 players. Maybe it's just that we try the card game version with 2 players, because the actual War of the Ring sounds like a bit of an undertaking and maybe not something we're going to get into all that soon, but
still one of those games that we should probably like one day try. It's like Twilight Imperium. Like one day I just need to try it to say I've tried it.
Yeah, exactly. And then I also have Through the Ages here, another one that some people say it's best solo, some people say it's best 2. I don't know if we would end up playing it on the app or a physical copy, but that's one that I feel like we really need to experience. And then the last one I'll say right now is Fealty, which is a 2-player abstract game by our Eric Royce, the designer of Spirit Island, which we have a copy of. But that's pretty much it for 2-player ones in terms of ones that I haven't tried yet. I know there's probably a bunch I'm forgetting about right now, but what have you got?
Okay, so I've got 5 on my list, and I don't know. I think I'm confident on 2 of them. Sorry that you haven't played them. The other ones I can't remember if you've played or not. But these are all ones that they're not just 2 players. Some of them, but I think that I'd be interested to try them at 2, and it would be fun to play it with you. So one is Crokinole. I just think that it would be fun for us to play Crokinole together, and it's been a long, long time since I played it last. So that would just be a fun one to just start like playing a little bit, like sort of peppering in the same way we do like Carcassonne and Innovation, just have it be one of the games and see if we both like get into it that way.
Yeah, I'd love to, and I have a board now, so. Yeah,
exactly. Another one, and it's also a board game blind spot for me, and I cannot remember if you've played it, is Viticulture. So Viticulture,
I have played it just on Board Game Arena.
Okay, so viticulture is apparently really good at 2, or a lot of people do like it at 2. And so because I haven't played it, I just thought that might be an easy way to sort of like get it to the table for the first time. And I think Dave has a copy too, so it's something we could even just like borrow or like break into Victory Pints and play there or whatever. Dave, don't pretend you didn't hear that. The other ones are Twilight Struggle. Have not played another board game blind spot, but would be cool to play one day. Grand Austria Hotel apparently is really good at 2. And I thought, did you play this? Have you played it?
No.
Okay, so that one I just thought, again, like it's a game that I hear brought up a lot anyway, so it's another kind of blind spot thing. But again, a lot of people, it shows up high on like BGG's like best 2-player games every year when the community ranks it or whatever.
I have heard really good things about it, and I would like to try it someday. I just didn't even think about it as a 2-player game, but...
Yeah, and then the last one is something Dave brought up recently, and I've heard of it, never had any interest, but now I just feel like we should try it. It's Raptor. Apparently Raptor's good at 2.
Yes, so asymmetric, right, with Bruno Cathala, if I'm not mistaken, or Bruno Faiduti, yeah.
Yeah, so it's those are just ones that I'm like, there are gaps already, and they're apparently good at 2, so that might be a good way to just like get them to the table.
Nice. I'm actually glad you mentioned Twilight Struggle, because I've heard like it's one of those ones that when we first got into the hobby, people were talking about it everywhere, but it felt like the theme and the artwork and the length of the game and stuff was a bit maybe not what we were looking for at the time. And I've since, like, I have the version on Steam. I haven't tried it yet, but knowing that you're interested in trying it, I think just the card play system sounds really, really interesting. So
yeah, for
it's
sure.
something I'd be open to trying.
And I'm pretty sure it was in like the top 5 on BGG for a while. Like people were really hot on it, and we missed it. We didn't really have any interest. And again, one that I think we should just play at some point.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, I think we're going to leave it at that. I mean, we could probably go on for hours about 2-player games. We didn't even touch on things like, the zero-sum nature of games. We didn't really get into, like, tug-of-war type stuff a lot. Like, there's so many aspects of 2-player gaming. We could have made it its own other episode, just diving deep into, like, the medium of 2-player games rather than kind of following up on our taste in games and how they've changed and that kind of thing. So I'm sure this is something we'll circle back to more, not only on future podcast episode, but probably on the channel again as well.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
All right, so if you want to check out the 2-player games video we referred to here, you can find that on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/allyoucanboard. If you'd like to chat with us in our amazing community about that, this episode, or anything else, you can come join our Discord. You can find the link to that in our show notes. If you'd like to support the show, please consider leaving a review on your podcast platform of choice, or you can help spread the word by recommending us to someone you know. And lastly, if you're interested in supporting us financially so that we can continue to grow All You Can Board and continue to improve the quality of what we're doing, consider checking us out on our Patreon page at patreon.com/allyoucanboard. A reminder that one of our newest rewards there, available at all the Patreon tiers, is that we have a bonus podcast episode every second week, which we record before recording our main episode, so that's called The Expansion. So we did just record our second expansion episode, so by the time you're hearing this, if you're a patron, you should have access to the bonus episode as well. Otherwise, this has been episode 3 of the All You Can Board podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you'll join us again in 2 weeks for episode 4.